See, a lot of parents come into a group like this thinking our situation is different. No one else is dealing with the exact thing that I am dealing with. But as I read through all of those responses, I kept thinking there's a pattern here. And I want to share with you some of what I was seeing because I think you'll hear parts of your own story in this. So what I did is I found that there were 5 scenarios, if you will. I'll call them like groupings of similar situations. So I put them together in these 5 scenarios, and I want you to listen, and maybe you hear a little bit of yourself in some of these situations. The first one, this the scenario number one was stories of stuck young adults. They're stuck at home and they're not moving forward. And I'm seeing a lot of parents say things like, I have a 20-year-old son at home. He's not in school, he's not working, he rarely leaves his room. Or maybe they say, my 29-year-old son is still living at home and not moving forward. Or even, my adult child has no career, no direction, and I don't know how to help anymore. Different families, different ages. Some of them were even younger than that, some of them were even older than that, but they all had the same experience. They were stuck. Maybe that's your situation, right? If your adult child is stuck at home, you are not alone. Or maybe you're in scenario number two, right? There were a lot of stories of addiction, of fear, and crisis. And these situations were more intense, uh, but there was commonality in them. I mean, one parent said, I'm feeling very desperate. My son is struggling with alcohol. He's been in rehab multiple relapses. I found him unresponsive. I fear for his life. I mean, serious stuff. Another parent talked about drugs, others about marijuana, gaming addictions, different forms of escape. The details were different in those stories, but the feeling underneath was the same, right? Addiction, fear, and not knowing what to do next. If your child is struggling with an addiction, you are definitely not alone. There was a third scenario. These were stories of, I've tried everything. We've tried therapy, we've tried medication, we've tried different parenting approaches. Nothing seems to work. And that's a hard place to be, right? Because it starts to feel like, what else is there? And sometimes you even feel like, is this ever going to change? And I picked up on that in the comments, right? You start to not trust that anything will change. And if you feel like you've tried everything, you start to just lose trust in really anything, any advice, right? So if you feel like you're in that place, right, where you've tried everything, I don't want you to give up. There is a way, there is hope, and you are not alone. There was also a lot of uh, scenarios, stories that I put in the fourth category, right? And these were stories of helping versus enabling. This one really stood out because people would say things like, I feel like I've enabled my son, but now I don't know how to stop. Or I've given financial support, emotional support. I don't know if I'm helping or making it worse. That confusion, that back and forth, I know that's exhausting. If that feels like you, there is a way to help without enabling. And you are definitely not alone, right? So many comments about that. And then the fifth grouping that I put together was stories of the emotional toll that parents were experiencing. And those moments weren't really even about how their child was doing anymore. It was about how they were doing, how you are doing. Parents would say things like, I feel like I'm drowning. I'm torn to pieces with pain and guilt. I don't I don't want to feel alone anymore. I just want to know that I'm not the only one dealing with this. That part is real, right? It has an impact on you as a parent. And if you feel like you're at your limit, you're worn down, you can't take it anymore, you are definitely not alone. So here's what I want you to hear. All of these situations, right, they seem different on the surface. Different ages, different behaviors, different levels of intensity, but underneath them, they're very similar. Right? What I'm seeing over and over in these stories is a pattern. Right? Your adult child is struggling. They're avoiding in some way. You're trying to help because you care, because you love them, but what you're doing doesn't seem to be working. And over time, that affects your relationship. That affects your peace of mind, your peace in your home, and you start to feel like you're alone. Right? Am I alone in this? And as I'm saying this, I'm guessing there's probably a lot of you that are hearing your own situations. I want to say this very clearly. If you've been feeling like you're the only one dealing with this, you are not. If you've been feeling like I don't know what to do anymore, you're not alone in that either. Right? In fact, most of the parents that come into this place, that's exactly where they are. Not because they failed, not because they didn't try hard enough, but because the situation is more complex than people realize. So here's something important. What starts to change things? It's not just trying harder. It's understanding what's actually going on underneath this pattern, right? Because when you understand the pattern that you and your adult child are in, the pattern that you're in together, you can start to respond differently. And that's where things start to shift. One of the most important things about being in a group like this is that you don't have to carry this by yourself. You can listen, you can share, you can take in what's helpful. You can start to see that there is a way forward, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And if nothing else tonight, I want you to walk away with this. You are not alone in this. Right? I read through every new member response. You know what I didn't see? Nobody, no one said, I've got this all figured out. So if you feel like you don't know what is next, you are in the right place. Right? And I'm glad you're here. And that's the message that I wanted to share tonight. I wanted you to hear that you are not alone. Right? And what we do in this group is we dig deeper, right? And there's going to be more and more information. There's going to be more stories. You're going to hear about what's working. So I encourage you to keep coming back to this. Get on my email list. That's where you're going to get the updates when we're going deep on various situations.